guys, what's up? My name is Shemin and I've got a pick a crystal reading for you. So this is a little different from most pick a crystals in that every single crystal on here is actually the same type of stone. These are all different fluorites that come from different regions. So depending on which one you're drawn to, it's going to kind of bring out a different aspect of kind of like the fluorite. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and let you guys pick intuitively. So without knowing kind of like the meaning behind each of the particular pieces here, pick your favorite. Go ahead and click the timestamp for your pile, and then when you get to it, I'll kind of explain a little bit of the kind of like characteristics behind that individual crystal there. All right, so option number one, you guys picked the Illinois fluorite corner. And so this one's really cool. This one actually has little bits of chalcopyrite floating around on the inside here. So you guys may feel like you've got these little hidden talents or bits of gold inside of you just waiting to be discovered. All right, guys, so let's go ahead and get into it. So for your main card here, you've got the Four of Wands with the cross energy being the Hermit card. So Four of Wands, upright, very positive card. So kind of like the main theme of your reading will be a little more so kind of like continuing to push you in the right direction rather than kind of like course correcting. So with the Four of Wands here being the main energy, this is just awesome. So the Four of Wands is all about kind of like union, celebration. This can be like a marriage card for some people. So if that is you, if you are planning on getting married soon, congratulations. That is such a joyous, happy time. For other people, this will kind of be like things in your life just kind of happening in harmony with each other. So a lot of times in the tarot deck, oh, got the Lovers on the bottom too. So these two cards here were the cards on the bottom of the deck after I shuffled your cards and then pulled them. I pulled those off because I pulled from the same decks for all of the readings. But specifically here, it's interesting that there's the Lovers on the bottom of the deck because that kind of gets into a little bit of what I'm going to talk about for this one. So the Lovers can represent romantic relationships, and I feel like it will for some people, but not everybody is in a love aspect of their life, or maybe you've kind of already got that settled, or you've kind of made up your mind about something. So for the people who don't want this to be about love, this is going to be about kind of like a harmony and coexisting existence between your kind of conscious and your subconscious self. In the tarot deck, especially from like the Lovers card, it's like the male and female kind of the self gets separated into the feminine, the subconscious, and the masculine, the conscious mind. So if you're reading tarot from a more esoteric standpoint, you can use those two kind of key things to unpack some of the deeper meanings behind things. But specifically with the Four of Wands here, it's like your conscious and your subconscious mind are acting in harmony with each other. They have kind of joined forces and met in the middle on something that is creating and providing this just like awesome, just like celebration and union for you. Just very happy time. It kind of doesn't want me to get into more detail than that right now. And so the cross energy for this is the Hermit card. So if there's going to be one thing that's going to prevent you from kind of like achieving this harmony, or if you're kind of like, you know, let's say you're looking for a relationship and this is your end goal, the thing that's going to prevent you from getting to this is kind of like hermiting. It's like keeping to yourself, staying inside of yourself, and not allowing your light to shine. So the star that's in the Hermit's lantern is actually the star in the Star card, which is one of the later major arcana cards, and to me is kind of like the whole purpose or the point of the Fool's Journey and why we go through all the major arcana. But specifically here, it's like the Hermit has to kind of keep it inside. He has to keep it contained in his lantern because it still is small and needs time to grow and nurture into this bigger thing moving forward. So with this being here, it's like you are still in this process of growing this seed, or, you know, again, in the relationship, this is only just the start of this big, beautiful thing that it is becoming. So just make sure that you're putting yourself out there and doing all the things that you want to be doing. Oh, my cat is being so cute. And so with the Ten of Wands in reverse here, this situation that you have going on, whether it be a relationship or something else, you know, that you're working through, this isn't going to be a thing or a process that overburdens you. Ten of Wands in reverse, or Ten of Wands when it's upright, is all about taking on more than you can carry. With it being reverse, it's saying that that is specifically not going to happen with this. If you've been in relationships before, or maybe they have kind of like pushed all of the extra work onto you, and you've had to kind of deal with it, or emotional baggage and stuff, this isn't going to be the case in this one, which may be why you got to this point in the first place. It's definitely going to encourage you to continue to have this thing evolve and grow as you're making that little star in the Hermit's lantern grow into the big star in the Star card. So best pieces of advice here, we've got the Ace of Swords with the Page of Coins. So both of these are like beginning cards. So the Ace is the very first of the numbered cards in tarot, and then the Page is the very first of the court cards. They're both about new beginnings, but kind of like in subtly different ways. So the Ace of Swords is all about a like new mindset that kind of like makes you view the world around you a little bit differently. When we view the world differently, we can sometimes see things that we didn't see before. So it's like a new idea or a new possibility is being handed to us because we were just able to figure something out a little bit differently. Page of Coins, so whenever we have court cards to me, they talk about so many things. I feel like when people are first starting to read tarot, the court cards are one of the hardest things to understand. But one of the couple of different ways that I will read court cards is about kind of like a progression of mastery. So it goes from like the page, the knight, to the queen, to the king, where the page is like a novice. He's like really, you know, he doesn't really know where to begin, but he knows he wants to start. So he's very comfortable kind of like, you know, stumbling a little bit in order to get where he wants to go or kind of do what he wants to do. Whereas the knights are a little bit quicker, they have a little more experience under their belt, and then it kind of grows until the king is that full total mastery. So Page of Coins here with the Ace of Swords specifically, this is a combination of like thinking about things a little bit differently, so it kind of just opens up some more possibilities in your mind. And with this, you will be starting some new kind of like physical journey or pursuit. So again, if this is a passion project, this is you starting a new project. This is a relationship, this is you guys starting the rest of your lives together. And even though the relationship has kind of progressed to the point where you're at this point, or again, you know, if you're looking for a relationship, this is kind of like the best way to get to this point. But it's like allow yourself to begin a new like relationship with either the person that you're currently with, or allow yourself to begin a new relationship just in general. As we go through our relationships, they constantly evolve as they enter into new stages of their journey, and so allow this new journey to be filled with its own path and don't expect it to be exactly like it was before. So with the internal side over here, we've got the Nine of Cups in reverse with the Nine of Wands also in reverse. So this is a very positive reading for the first part. So I was a little surprised to see these two kind of show up in reverse. So I pulled one clarifying card, started talking, and then I got just a little click of how to read it better. So I feel like for some of you people, you're feeling a little bit unsure of yourselves right now. So it's like a lack of personal satisfaction on the matter, as well as kind of like a feeling of like that sense of drive or that passion that propels you forward also kind of acting a little bit weird. And so I feel like with this, it's like, you know, some people may be feeling a little bit of the kind of like pressure or the weight of the decision that kind of goes along with this. For other people, especially when it comes to kind of like trying to get towards this point, you know, many people are going to watch this, so I kind of have to pick up on a couple of different energies while I'm reading this. But specifically, it's like this is the thing that you're working towards, but it's like you're in this state currently. So it's like you currently don't feel like you're getting a lot of fulfillment or satisfaction out of this thing that you're doing. And I think it's because it's like you're currently still working towards that like internal sense of harmony. And so it's like the cups here is a very feminine aspect, and then the wands is a very masculine aspect, even in kind of like alchemy. It's like the sign for water. Whoops, I can't really do it with my hands. It's like an upside down triangle, which is the pure feminine state, and then fire is the right side up triangle, which is the pure masculine state. The other symbols will have a kind of crossbar through it, which is saying it's like this nature, but the kind of aspect of cool or dry goes against the inherent nature. So that kind of makes a little bit of sense with this. So it's like particularly your feminine or that subconscious aspect is feeling a little bit out of harmony because of a lack of like self-satisfaction. So this may be you trying to get external validation for this thing rather than doing it to the point where you are confident and satisfied in it. Knight of Wands in reverse, this is the external aspect. So because you're not feeling this internal sense of fulfillment, when you are acting on this thing, it feels like there's a little bit of resistance towards it, just because, you know, you're not that internal, that it's like if the internal is the foundation that the house is built on, if the foundation is a little bit wobbly with the subconscious, that active state is going to be a little bit wobbly on top of it too. The clarifying card for this, which kind of ties it all back together, is going to be the Seven of Swords. So the Seven of Swords is all about having to keep things a little bit hidden for the time being. So this man here has the Seven of Swords, and while you can see three of them, he's trying to hold these four kind of like behind his cloak here. And so it is perfectly fine and okay to keep things to yourself for a while, especially while you're still kind of building up your own internal kind of sense of rhythm or like habit with it. And so while you do that, just share the things that you're comfortable sharing. And if you have things that you're not super satisfied with, it's okay to just not share them, keep them hidden, keep those things just for you to practice on and learn from before you go ahead and, move on to the next thing. So, all right, that's the internal side here. Now for the external side. So we've got the Chariot in reverse with the Three of Wands. So a major arcana card here showing up, this one being in reverse, other one being the Hermit card. So, and I guess the card on the bottom of the deck, the Lovers. So with the Chariot card being here, so externally, it's like, I think this being this way makes a lot of sense with this being this way. So because of the kind of like iffy foundation that we're feeling internally about this, that's kind of causing us externally to kind of drag our feet a little bit. So some people, if this is about your marriage, let's say you guys are engaged, you have a date, but it's like you're kind of like, there's something in you that's kind of putting up a little bit resistance here. Deal with this first before you go ahead and follow through with it. If you don't, this, again, that foundation will always feel a little bit shaky, and so then once you start moving forward and building more and more on top of it, you want that foundation to be steady so it can support everything that's going to come after. So that's there. Clarifying card for it is the Three of Wands upright. So the Three of Wands, the typical artwork for this one, it shows a person kind of like looking out over this like cliff, or at least in this deck that I use, it's like this person's looking out over a cliff and there's like a river snaking before them, and they've got their little walking staff, and you can tell they're like looking out and kind of surveying the land to like pick exactly which path it is they want to follow. Externally, this is the thing that you want to do. You want to work with either your partner or somebody else that you trust kind of to help you work through whatever this situation is. And you want to really pick a game plan for it. So if you don't feel confident about this because of X, Y, and Z, figure out the core root of the problem for any of those things, and then figure out step by step what solution you would want to do in order to make it feel okay. If this is a relationship type thing, if you are feeling uncomfortable because there's some issues in your relationship that you guys haven't worked through, please, please, please try to work through those before you do get married, because those things will only come up further in the future, and that will just it will build resentment if that happens. So cards at the bottom here, so the lesson or reason behind why all of these were the cards that decided to come up in the positions that they did, and what ultimately is the lesson or reason behind this whole situation. So first one here is the Four of Pentacles in reverse with the King of Cups. So Four of Pentacles in reverse is kind of talking about a lot of what I've been talking about, that unstable foundation. So Four of Pentacles upright is like the four corners of your house being very firm and solid and allowing everything else to be built off of it. With it being in reverse, it's saying that we can sometimes crave this foundation so much that we kind of like almost try to force it. So it's like if we want our foundation for our house to be here, let's say there's a little bit of a soft spot over in the corner here, and so no matter how much we try to put our foundation on there, it's always going to kind of sink a little bit there. So we can try to do our best to just do it with these maybe 3 good foundations, but really if we want things to be perfect or just like the best that they can be, we need to be okay with kind of shifting our understanding or expectations of the situation so we are on a place where there is a more stable foundation for us to build off of. Clarifying card for this is the King of Cups. So King of Cups, hooray! So we've got all the different kind of court cards here. We've got the Page, we've got the Knight, and now we've got the King, which is that full master. So specifically, this is here to kind of help show you the areas that you need to kind of work on mastery as it relates to kind of like emotional understanding, especially because it's like the Nine of Cups is in reverse over here. That's kind of specifically where this emotional mastery is wanting to come in. We need to be so comfortable with listening to our emotions and kind of the things that they're telling or the things that they're arising within us, and be comfortable enough to listen to what they're saying, just like it is a friend or a person telling us something that they are going through or experiencing. Our emotions don't arise because they like to make us feel bad or the things that we feel. Our emotions arise as a response to the outside stimuli that we're facing. So if you're consistently feeling some type of way, you need to address the core root of it. You need to plan it, plan around it and for it in order to kind of have that develop into something that's a little bit better for you. So Cards on the bottom of the deck here, so this is kind of underlying or background energy that is related to the reading, but not necessarily something you can act on per se. But we've got the Lovers card here, so hooray for some people, this is going to be about romantic relationships, congrats. And for other people, this is going to be about that kind of internal and external, the conscious and the subconscious aspects that we talked about. This card over here is the Five of Cups in reverse. So Five of Cups, when it's upright, is about kind of focusing on the negatives rather than the positive. With this being in reverse though, it's saying particularly throughout this situation, you know, there's so many positive things going for it that this is kind of just like helping you in whatever way it can. But genuinely keep looking at the positives of this and know that the positives are so strong and stable and sturdy for this situation that they can kind of help support you through all these other things that you have. And the Oracle card that we have here, the very last one, is Yogini of the 285 Hertz, and I'm going to read this one from the book. Alright, so changes in your life, including closing doors or missed opportunities, are not going to derail your fulfillment. Realignments are happening based on divine wisdom and timing. You are being diverted from unnecessary obstacles and suffering. Trust in how your life path is unfolding. Stay true to your authentic journey because it is working. Whether you realize it or not, significant inner healing is taking place. So thank you so much, pile number one. That is my reading for you. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all of that fun stuff. And I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bye. Welcome, pile two. You guys picked the Shangbao fluorite. So this is actually, for the size of this is a collector grade fluorite. This comes from a very famous mine in China that is well known for these particular windows that it has here. This one's got a really awesome stair step formation to it. So for the people who picked this one, you guys may have a like surprising amount of oomph or something going for you that may get overlooked a lot because of kind of like the package that it's in. This is genuinely an awesome collector piece, but because of its size, most people wouldn't know that. So we're gonna go ahead and talk about your reading now. So for your reading here, first card, you've got the Nine of Pentacles with the cross energy of the moon. So for you guys, kind of one of the things that you're going through right now is this energy of like abundance and harvest. I feel like a lot of you guys have been like putting in the work for something and like planting your seeds, watering it, and like allowing this to grow and prosper to the point where you finally have something that you can kind of like show for it. So this is like working on something all the way through to the end and finally getting the payoff for it. That's going to be kind of like the theme of the reading today, is like either getting to that payoff or kind of like, you know, advice around kind of like graciously accepting that payout when it comes. But so here's the main thing, and then the cross energy. So the main thing that's kind of like inhibiting you guys from like getting to this energy here is the moon card. So the moon card talks about one of two major things depending on how you choose to read it. And so one of the first major ones is timing. So back in the ancient days, we based our calendars off of the moon cycle and the moon phases. The traditional lunar calendar has 13 months, all with 28 days, which is where you get like the Lunar New Year from like, you know, or the Chinese New Year. So with that, you know, one of the things is timing. So it could be if that's a state that you're currently in, you've planted your seeds, you're watering them so hard, weeding the beds, and you're waiting for that final payout to happen. It will happen. It just needs to take a little bit more time for things to kind of fall into place for you, which can be frustrating, but anything that's worth doing or anything that's worth having is worth the wait to get to it. One of the other things that the moon talks about is illusion. So because the moon is constantly changing, things never look the same under moonlight as they did the night before. And so kind of as the moon grows and our understanding or our illumination on a subject grows, we can sometimes make out a little bit more details than we originally had when we first started. So with this card too, it could even be that you're still working towards this payoff because your understanding or skill level for the subject is still growing. And so with that, just make sure that if there is anything that comes up with your new understanding that it's like, oh my God, I've been doing it wrong, or oh my goodness, this isn't what it looked like it was at the first place, or, you know, at first, be okay with that. Be okay with having to correct yourself or kind of changing where you're coming from when you have new information presented to you. So This up here is going to be the first or best piece of advice that your spirit guides have to tell you towards kind of getting towards this payoff here, and then this will be kind of how this affects you internally, how this affects you externally, or how you relate to other people, or how other people relate to you, and this is the lesson or reason behind why everything is happening. I've got some cards on the bottom of the deck here to explain kind of background energy, and I'll talk about those last, and an oracle card too that I'll read. So, best piece of advice here is the Four of Swords. So, Four of Swords is all about, like, it's like creating peace in your mind. It's like a meditation card. I think a lot of the four cards are meditation cards, like the Four of Swords and the Four of Cups to me are about kind of like stilling and quieting either the emotional aspect or the mental aspect. This one in particular is the mental aspect. So your mind may be being a little bit mean to you, or because it is like seeking and waiting for this payoff, it's like getting a little bit impatient on things. Just make sure you're breathing, taking a step back, and creating a little bit of space between you and this situation. When we hold on to things a little bit too tightly, where we want to see results so badly, it kind of limits the amount of space that the universe has to work for something. So it's okay to kind of tighten your grip on it. Hierophant in reverse here. So Hierophant, when it's upright, is all about kind of like receiving some new key piece of information or key understanding. It's like a key that kind of unlocks many doors, so to speak. So it's more of a kind of universal truth or understanding. However, with it being in reverse, it's saying that there is no more of that you need to learn about this thing as it, whatever this is that you're working towards. The Moon card here, these are going to be more like subtle understandings rather than kind of like these big core concepts. So especially with that, rest easy knowing that you have all of those big picture things that you need, and just know that it is a timing situation. It's not you doing anything wrong per se. So now, clarifying card for this big one here, the kind of main energy is the Page of Cups. So Page of Cups is all about new beginnings. Specifically, it's kind of a new emotional beginning. So it's kind of a little bit different from like an Ace, which is a full new beginning. I guess I should have said that a little differently, but the pages are kind of like the beginning of a like progression. So it's like whenever you have the court cards, to me, they kind of talk about mastery of a subject or kind of differing levels of understanding and really like being able to integrate that into their practice. Page of Cups is still very new to this, so he's very passionate. He has a lot in his heart that he kind of wants to share out with the world around him, but he doesn't quite fully understand all the nuance behind those. He just has the little cup rather than the full ocean like the king does. So with this here, also with your kind of payoff, you're still, even with this, in the beginning stages, and so you may be waiting for like that first little payoff or this big thing that you've been working towards. Again, just know that it will happen. So specifically for the internal aspect here, you've got the Seven of Pentacles with the Page of Swords in reverse. So Seven of Pentacles being the main card, this is all about kind of like this energy of green tomatoes. So, so the Seven of Pentacles obviously comes before the Nine of Pentacles, where the Nine of Pentacles is that full payoff, that harvest, the grapes are ripe, you can finally pick them. The Seven of Pentacles is like green tomatoes, or I guess kind of like underripe fruit. So it's like you can see that the work that you're doing is like paying off, it's growing, it's building towards something, but because it's not ripe yet, you still can't really receive all of the benefits from it. You could pick one of those little berries off of the bush, but if you try to eat it, it's going to be really sour, really tart, and it's not going to feel as satisfying as this Nine of Pentacles. So I feel like for some of you people, you're kind of feeling maybe a little bit frustrated with this, where you feel like you've been putting in that work and you feel like you're constantly in this state of green tomatoes or underripe fruit. Again, just timing of things. You looking at your raspberry bush and wanting those berries to turn ripe as hard as you want is not going to change it. It is just going to take the passage of time as it receives all those little extra sun bits into its leaves and can create those sugars and eventually allow it to ripen naturally. Clarifying card for this is the Page of Swords in reverse. So interesting, we've got the Page of Cups here with the Four of Swords here as the key piece of advice. Those two together to me is manifesting into this Page of Swords in reverse. So even though this is a kind of like the whole situation is this kind of like beginning stage of this like kind of progression of mastery, it's like because you feel like you haven't gotten this payoff for it yet, you mentally feel like you haven't really started yet, so to speak, even though you're already on this journey. You've already started this, you've planted that seed, and you're at this point of that underripe fruit. It just takes a little bit more time to get to that final thing. Don't be so hard on yourself because it doesn't feel like this yet. And I feel like with this, because it is kind of more of a mental factor here, I think this will kind of change for you kind of once you have this payoff. So just be mindful of that. You know, your mind is being a little bit mean on you or mean to you because it's being impatient. You are doing great and you're putting in all the work that you can or should be doing right now. So external aspect over here, you've got the Ten of Wands with the Wheel of Fortune. So Ten of Wands here. So this is more so about how external people view this situation rather than how it may actually be acting out. But so specifically here, we've got the Ten of Wands. So Ten of Wands is all about kind of overburdening yourself. It's like taking on more than you can comfortably manage and eventually reaching the point of exhaustion. With this card being here, it could be that a lot of the people around you kind of feel like you're putting in too much work kind of for this thing. You know, when you have your raspberry bush and stuff, you know, you can only water it so much, you can only weed the flower bed so often before you're kind of stuck with nothing left to do but wait. So with this kind of situation, it could be that, you know, while this thing is naturally ripening, you know, there may be some misunderstanding around the timing aspect of things, so you feel like if you put in more work, you can kind of speed up the process or push things along, when that's not necessarily the case. Wheel of Fortune here also kind of talks about that. The Wheel of Fortune is all about those green cosmic cogs of the like universal machine turning and aligning in our favor. With it, there's a little bit of luck and prosperity with it because it's like things are just working out. Everything is in alignment. There's this like, I don't know, just like influx of energy from the universe. Also interesting that both of these are the number 10. So Wheel of Fortune is number 10. Ten of Wands is obviously the number 10. And in numerology, whenever you have the number 10, that's really a beginning of a new cycle. So digits 1 through 9 add up to themselves. Once you reach 10, that's 1 plus 0, which equals 1, and starts it all the way back over as it builds back up its progression. So externally, I think while yes, people think you have been putting in a lot of work towards this, I do also think that people think that you're like leveling up in some area kind of around this. It's like they can see the work that you are putting into it, and while they may think it's a bit much, they can see that this is kind of making things turn in your favor for you. Whether you can see that or not is besides the point, but other people can kind of see these things aligning for you, and so it is happening. You know, just trust. So last little bit of the spread here. So the lesson or reason behind why all of this is coming up for you today, what the ultimate lesson behind this is, and kind of what it is that you can do about it or take from it as an understanding. So main one here is the Devil card, clarified by the Seven of Wands in reverse. So Devil card is in reverse, hooray. So the Devil card is all about kind of like our personal bad habits and addictions kind of getting in the way of things. With it being in reverse, it could even be that you've like worked through a bad habit or addiction, and that's kind of like, you know, the thing that will ultimately allow you to get to this payoff. Or it could be that in this process of kind of working through this, and especially kind of quieting the mind and like allowing the timing of things to just naturally unfold, it could be this holding on to things very tightly is a kind of like thing that is ultimately limiting you from progressing faster and better, or kind of getting more out of the things that you do. Again, the universe needs a lot of space in order to grow. Even in our flower beds, if you plant flowers really tightly packed to each other, they're not going to grow as well as if they had adequate space to blossom and become their full authentic self. So bear that in mind. Other one here is the Seven of Wands in reverse. So Seven of Wands to me is about kind of like re-engaging in conflict that were past. So it's like in the Suit of Wands, there's like the Five of Wands, the Seven of Wands, and the Nine of Wands that to me, Nine of Wands, kind of tell a little bit of a story together where it's like a conflict happens, victory with the Six of Wands, and then there's kind of like the shadow of the situation comes back up with the Seven of Wands, progresses a little bit further, and then with the Nine of Wands, it's like you're so far past it, but it's still giving you a second chance to kind of re-engage with it to see if you have really moved past it or if you're going to kind of re-engage in that cycle. So Seven of Wands in reverse here, I think you guys, and especially with the Devil in reverse, you have moved through some conflict and are now maybe with this situation or maybe with something else going on outside of this, being kind of presented with an opportunity to, and excuse my language, get back on your bullshit for a little bit. So with this, just be mindful that you are following through with this and you keep this kind of payoff in the back of your mind while you're working through this, and I think that will make it so you don't kind of re-engage with it. And it is in reverse, so I do think, again, that your proclivity or your inclination will be to not do this. It's just showing up as kind of like a reminder for you. So Cards on the bottom of the deck here, we've got the Nine of Wands as well as the Fool card. So nines showing up a lot here along with 10, so definitely very close to the ending of a cycle for yourself. And with the Moon card, that's one of the later major arcanas as well. So Nine of Wands is about, you know, outside of the kind of this thing that I talked about, you know, there's multiple different ways to read all of the different cards. The Nine of Wands also talks about being kind of on like that last step before you're on that whole new landing or level, when you're kind of like walking up a staircase. So it's like kind of background energy here is you're like right at that last little bit, and you just need to put that last little bit of oomph or, you know, something into it before you get that payoff. For you guys, again, with this here, you just have to be patient. It's like this is naturally happening. You're already on the way to this progression. Again, just be patient, it'll happen. And the other card here on the bottom is the Fool card. So very interesting. So I feel like for some of you people, it's like you may already have in the back of your mind, or may already have started on working on the next big project that you have for yourself. Fool is all about recognizing the new areas that we can kind of explore and dive into. And I think also with this here as well, with the kind of leveling up that happens with the Ten of Wands and the Wheel of Fortune here, I really do feel like it's like you will become, it's like this situation will be like, the situation will progress to the point where it's like in your leveling up, when it kind of puts you into the new landing that it's kind of talking about over here, it's like that in and of itself will kind of feel like a whole new journey for you. So that could even be one of the reasons why your spirit guides were making it take as long as it was going to take, is like this payoff that you're going to have is going to be huge, just kind of like tremendous. And it's like, even though it will still be kind of continuing whatever it is that you've started here, it will be just a whole other experience kind of once you're on the other side of this over here. So that is that, and to close it out, I'm going to go ahead and read the Oracle card from the book. All right, so you've been moving so fast for so long that you're not realizing how wound up you've become. Gently unwind now to drop into a deeper, slower, healing rhythm, and you will restore your body, mind, and soul. Things which seem too difficult right now shall soon seem very manageable and even pleasurable to accomplish. So that is what I have for you guys, pile 2. I'm going to move on to pile 3. Go ahead and leave a like, comment, and subscribe if this resonated with you, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye. Welcome, welcome, pile 3. You guys picked the almost Polish Prodigy pocket fluorite. So I am a mineral collector, if you couldn't tell by the different types of fluorites here. And so there's a very special, there's like, with all minerals, there's always like certain locales or places that produce just like exceptional varieties of it, and some of those become very highly sought after by collectors because they only happen once. And so the Polish Prodigy pocket was one of those where there was only one pocket or kind of like little outcropping of rocks that took on this very particular pattern and formation to it. And so this one is not quite that, but it probably came from a pocket really close to it and definitely came from the same region. The only difference between this one and the kind of like true Polish Prodigy pocket fluorite is that the true Polish Prodigy pocket will have a little bit more pink kind of in some of the purple than this one. So very close, but not quite. And so when I originally planned out these kind of like readings, I kind of planned for the crystal that you picked to kind of have a little bit of an impact on the reading that you did. And I think this one will kind of take on a little bit more of that than others. So you guys have a lot of reversal cards here. So kind of, I think this whole reading will be about, there's some situation going on that isn't quite what it seems. And so because of that, it's very important to listen to this one, follow through all the way to the end, because you may make a very different major life decision kind of depending on what this reading talks about. So for the situation here, for the like overall theme for it, we've got the Nine of Pentacles in reverse, and then the cross energy for that is the Two of Wands. So main kind of energy of the reading here is to kind of like hold back for a bit. So Knight of Pentacles, when it's upright, is all about being able to like move quickly and confidently in the kind of earthly or physical realm. So this is kind of like more earthly or mundane things. So this is going to be something that's involving like a job or career or house. Because of the Eight of Wands in reverse here, this may even be somebody who's planning on moving, which the big piece of advice is do not move, please do not move. So with that here, you know, whatever it is that you're kind of wanting to do or whatever situation it is you're trying to act on, the reason why it's so important to hold off for a second is because it's not quite what it seems. Specifically here, the cross energy for it is the Two of Wands. So the Two of Wands is somebody who is like, so they're up here on this little tower, and so they've got their two little walking sticks here, so they're planning on moving, you know, walking. It's like they're planning on progressing or going on a journey in some way. Kind of talks about like passion and motivation and stuff, but specifically it's like the Two of Wands is about kind of like taking this inspiration and being able to plan out kind of exactly which direction you want to head in. The Three of Wands right after it is a little bit more kind of like detailed oriented planning, whereas the Two of Wands is just kind of like a general direction. With this being the cross energy here, it's saying that it's kind of like whatever the general direction of this thing is, that's kind of the main thing that's like wrong here. Or like, I won't say wrong per se, but that's kind of where the main issue is lying, is that if you kind of had to pick two different directions and you maybe kind of veered more towards this one, it may be that this other direction is kind of a little bit more in alignment with kind of where it is you ultimately want to be headed. So first, key pieces of advice here, and then this is the internal aspect, this is the external aspect, and then this is the lesson or reason behind why you're going through all the things that you're going through. These two cards here are the cards on the bottom of the deck after I dealt everything, and then these two cards actually jumped out while I was shuffling. So I'm going to talk about these at the end because I think this is also a very important message. So biggest piece of advice here is the Eight of Wands in reverse. So Eight of Wands when it's upright is about kind of like the domino effect. So it's like once one thing happens, everything else kind of happens very quickly right after it. There's a lot of movement with this card. So that, the Six of Wands and a couple of other cards can talk about kind of like physical moving as well. So moving states, moving cities, moving houses, any of that kind of thing. With it being in reverse here, again, it's saying to hold off specifically for this situation. Once you do this first thing or once you act on it, there are so many other things that are going to happen very quickly in succession right after it. And if you act on this, it's going to lead to the Ten of Pentacles in reverse. So Ten of Pentacles upright, very positive card. It's all about financial kind of like abundance. It's like having a very set foundation in the physical realm that it's able to kind of like provide for kind of like more than just the necessities. With it being in reverse, it's saying if you were to do this, it would kind of put you back a level financially. So this could be that, you know, it sets you back on kind of like retirement, or even more seriously for some people, this could kind of push you down an economic bracket or maybe even to poverty, or kind of just like a lot of financial loss that kind of goes along with this, especially with the kind of main card at the bottom or the lesson behind everything being the Five of Pentacles, which is all about loss. It is like specifically anytime you have the number 5 in tarot, it talks about a change. Five of Pentacles, change of finances. In this particular case, it is not for the better. So clarifying card for the main situation here is the Two of Coins. So it's interesting you've got the Two of Wands with the Two of Coins. So definitely this is going to be talking about balance between things. So Knight of Pentacles in the suit of Pentacles, Two of Coins, that's basically Pentacles. They just call them coins for some reason. So these connected, and kind of the imbalance is with that Two of Wands. So it's like, you know, again, just change the direction that you're heading in, and that will kind of create a better balance to this situation. So it could be that it's like you're so drawn to this because it's almost in the right direction. It's like you have so much of the right idea. It's just that one little key thing that's kind of out of alignment right now. So that's that. So for the internal aspect, so if this were to allow to kind of follow through in the course that it is projected, you've got the Tower in reverse with the Four of Cups in reverse. So very interesting here. So the Tower is kind of about this very cataclysmic change. So in the traditional deck, it's got like this lightning bolt striking the tower. There's flames, the top of it's coming off, people are falling out, there's fire everywhere, it's terrible, oh my god. And so with this card being here, it's kind of saying that it's like, if you were to kind of take this change, it's like kind of a two-part thing. It's like the Tower, while difficult, talks about like, the reason why the tower had to crumble was because we have like been up in that tower for so long, we've built up our foundations that we kind of thought that the tower was all the world had to offer, or that the tower was the best we could do for ourselves. And so it kind of took this divine act, or this act of God, you know, the lightning bolt striking, and also all the little like fire bolts on the traditional deck is in the shape of Yod, which is the Hebrew word for hand, so it's even talking about the hand of God. Also a big astrology thing, we have a ton of Yods going on right now. If you're at all into astrology, please look into it, it's very interesting. But specifically for that being here, it's like two things. So it's like if you were to follow through with this, it's like you wouldn't be going through this kind of like, it's like when the tower happens, it's kind of like we have this kind of like acceptance that comes along with it as we kind of have to move out and find a different tower because the tower is not there anymore. The top got blown off, like we can't go back there. So it's like I think you would be avoiding kind of like going to this place that would be better for you if you were to do this. Like you would be avoiding the kind of soul or cosmic restructuring that's happening here. And also I think you would still go through that kind of very strong cataclysmic change that it's talking about, but kind of like without the satisfaction of the reward that comes after, especially just because the 10 of coins here and the 5 of pentacles both showing up in the particular ways that they do, that's kind of talking about that. Also the 4 of cups in reverse as the main clarifying card. So the 4 of cups here, there's 3 cups on the table before the person, and there's this cup kind of floating in the sky in the background. In most of the traditional decks, it has like a little hand holding the cup in a cloud, so it's again the hand of God. Similar. But specifically, it's like when we're so focused on these kind of 3 cups that we have before us, we can sometimes miss out on this genuinely amazing opportunity that the universe or source or whatever you want to call it kind of has for us. So make sure that you're seeing all the options that you have before you so you don't miss out on some awesome opportunity. And I think that's ultimately what all of this is about, where it's like, I think tarot is trying to like scare you kind of in a good way, because I think if you do follow through with this, this is the very real projected outcome of where it's going to head. But also too, it's like they're ultimately saying all of these things and trying to get you to change course because there's something better for you. It's like if you could look and see, like, you know, in video games, it's like sometimes there are video games where it's like you can make certain choices and different choices will lead to kind of different outcomes. And it's like no matter what you do, if you pick option A, you will never get outcome B, because it's like A just kind of set you off on that little path to getting this thing. And so it's like with this, it's like you have this really awesome path with this awesome reward waiting for you over here, that it's like if you were to take this one, it's like not only would you miss this over here, but it's also just like a not super desirable outcome too. So it's almost like 2 misses rather than just kind of like the one big loss that you would be having here. So other side over here, this is the external side of things. So you've got the King of Pentacles in reverse with the Death card also in reverse. So very interesting here. So the Death card doesn't always talk about physical death, and so, in fact, most of the time it does not, but sometimes it can. So I'll kind of read it a little bit for both, depending on what people have going on in their situations. For the first one here, we've got the King of Pentacles in reverse. So I feel like for some people, this particular move may be involving a person, so you may be moving for, like, let's say a romantic partner or a job or kind of like something like that. With the King of Pentacles in reverse here, so you see how it's like the situation as a whole is that Knight of Pentacles in reverse, and then this one's the King of Pentacles in reverse. So specifically the reason why this situation wouldn't work out here is because of some kind of external person or factor. So also interesting that's in the Suit of Pentacles, because there's a ton of coins or pentacles in reverse with that 5 of Pentacles, so very money kind of or earthly focused on this. So it's like because of this other person over here, that's the thing that would cause all the big financial loss. So whether this be, you know, you move in with somebody, oh my god, you guys end up breaking up or something, and then it's like you have to go out and find another house on top of having just moved, and again it's that kind of like two hits or knocks kind of within this kind of one thing. But, you know, whatever it is, regardless of the situation, job, you know, the job may not pay as much as you originally think, or let's say the company has to downsize and because you're new, they just go ahead and nix you. Whatever it is, that's kind of the situation here. The clarifying card behind this is the Death card. So the Death card happens right before the Tower card. This is 13, this is 14. They're, oh my god. So I was gonna say, so these are 2 of 3 cards that in the traditional deck have a black background to them when all the other ones have different colors. So these 3 are the heaviest cards in the tarot deck. And so I think a lot of you guys are kind of going through a little bit of that, particularly when all of the dark cards comes out. It kind of reminds me of like the Dark Night of the Soul. It's a very difficult situation that you're going through, that kind of, it's like there is another side to it, and on the other side it becomes so much brighter. And there's always that saying, it's always darkest before the dawn. And even in the grand story of tarot, that's exactly how it is too. Right after the last of the black cards, right after you have the devil card here with 15, it is all blue skies ahead, and then you've got the star, the sun, the moon, the world, all of these really happy ones. But it's like you have to go through this difficult situation in order to get to those happy skies. So just trust that you are working towards something better. You are just kind of going through it right now. So we validate that, we recognize that. We're not saying this is easy or an easy decision by any means. But particularly the death card here. So the death card is all about kind of like an ego death, more so than anything else. So it's like, as we go throughout our lives, we are constantly confronted with kind of like areas of ourselves that need growth. So this can be very mundane, where it's just like, you know, I want to learn how to multiply. I never learned how to multiply in school, so I want to learn how to do it. When you learn that skill, the part of you that was the person who didn't know how to multiply, you know, or do math properly or whatever, it's like that part of you dies so that this new person, who is a person who does know how to multiply and does know how to do math, can kind of take their place. So as we go through any transition, we have to fundamentally stop saying parts of our story in order to incorporate or embody these future parts of our story that we have waiting for ourselves. With this card being here, especially with the King of Pentacles in reverse and this being in reverse, I feel like this particular person here, it's like one of the main reasons why this energy is so insidious is because it's ultimately trying to prevent you from making this big change that you need to make. For some people, this will definitely be a relationship. For other people, again, this will be a boss or kind of some other type of situation. But whatever it is, don't let anybody ever tell you how to be you. Like, oh my God, can you believe? They don't know what you have going on in your head. They only view things from the outside and kind of through their own warped or perspectives on kind of what they have gone through in life. So you are the person who ultimately knows you best, and you know the things that are going to make you the happiest in the future. So be okay with allowing that progression to happen as it needs to. So cards here at the bottom, again, the lesson or reason behind why all of this is happening in the first place and what the core thing to learn from this situation is. So you've got the Five of Pentacles with the Ace of Cups. So Five of Pentacles, like I talked about, is all about loss. Particularly, this is kind of like a physical loss of some sort. So this can actually, if you get Five of Pentacles with the Death card both upright together, this more so than anything can talk about physical death, because again, it's rooted in the physical rather than things. So it could even be for some people that, especially again, King of Pentacles, it could be that there is somebody who is passing away. So maybe there could be like a little bit of inheritance or something that kind of comes along with this moving thing. Again, a lot of different people will watch this, so I feel like that's maybe for like one or two people specifically out there. But again, just be mindful, especially if that is the case here. I feel like there would be something where it's like a lot of taxes or something that go along with that. So just be mindful of what you spend if that is your particular situation. So again, Five of Pentacles, all about loss. Particularly, the lesson behind this whole situation, I think, is going to be about either A, how to gracefully manage your losses, or B, how to cut your losses. I feel like for some people, kind of this situation as it is may already kind of feel a little dead in some ways. And so when things kind of pass, so it's like when a situation is kind of like there's no hope of recovery for it, or kind of like a situation has progressed beyond repair, it's okay no matter how much time, effort, or energy you have put into this thing. It is a-okay to like cut your losses. If you're not having a good time, you're not experiencing good things, you don't have to put up with that. And like, especially the clarifying card right next to it is the Ace of Cups, and the Ace of Cups is all about a like emotional renewal and like new beginning. I feel like for a lot of these people, especially because again, there's all these really heavy dark cards here, all of the Dark Night of the Soul cards, I think you guys are definitely going through that. And I think especially when we're in those kind of very dark skies, it can sometimes feel so hopeless and kind of like there's no chance of anything new kind of starting. It's like, you know, if you plant your seeds when it's dark out, those seeds can't really rise until the sun comes back out. And so I feel like for you guys right now, you feel like kind of things are very fruitless, or like there hasn't really been much renewal or kind of that happening for you. So the kind of core lesson here behind this is that that is always available to you. No matter how hopeless things seem, we are always one very difficult decision away from things being different. And sometimes, you know, we can't will ourselves up to making this decision, and so we never have this kind of renewal here. But because of kind of all of this, I think getting to the point of being unbearable, I think you're kind of at the point where, you know, you have to make this decision. And I think if you were to take this move or whatever it is here, I think, you know, that would kind of be like the final nail in the coffin for you, so to speak. So got those here. So cards on the bottom of the deck here. So we've got the High Priestess in reverse, and then we've got the Devil card upright. So High Priestess in reverse. So these are kind of background energies that kind of help explain the situation, but they're not necessarily things we can kind of act on right now. But the first one here is the High Priestess in reverse. So it's kind of interesting that we talked about the like blue sky cards that kind of come after all of these heavy cards here. So the High Priestess is the only other card that has a blue background to it, and so kind of it makes sense with kind of the functionality of the High Priestess, of how she's all about intuition and being able to kind of see the future or outcomes of things. I think for some people here, you may have got a little bit of an intuitive flash maybe when the situation was starting that you maybe didn't quite know was an intuitive hit when it first happened. I think sometimes, especially when it comes to intuition, it can be difficult to discern between real intuition or kind of like our mind just saying stuff or kind of what we want to hear. So with the High Priestess in reverse, I think there was some intuitive flash that you got about the situation that your mind just for some reason kind of had to override in some way. And so specifically with this, I don't want you to blame yourself for this situation. I think things happened in the way they happened, ultimately for a reason, as everything does. And so I hope ultimately you find that reason. So other card here on the bottom is the Devil. So the Devil, very interesting. So I feel like for some people, this is going to be a relationship thing, but again, not for everybody. But for the people who this is a relationship reading for, so in the traditional artwork for the Devil card, it's got the Devil sitting up here on his little pedestal, and then kind of like underneath him, there's like the, like both lovers, so the male and the female lover from the Lovers card kind of chained to his altar or pedestal underneath it. And so kind of the energy of the Devil is that the kind of like bad habits or addictions or kind of like negative patterns that we put ourselves into, they not only affect us, but they also affect the people around us. And that can also work for other people too. So if other people are going through their own kind of situations or kind of like their own kind of stagnant, sticky, icky energy, when we hang around these people a lot, we can sometimes unconsciously start to pick up that energy, and it can start to incorporate into our own etheric field as well. Especially if there is a relationship and you guys are merging yourselves together with this card here, that is even more so the case. You will kind of pick on that energy a little bit more quickly. So I know that's not fun to hear. Like, I really do, like, I have a lot of empathy for the people who this is kind of the reading for, because I think, again, this is not a fun reading to have to hear, but I think sometimes this is a reading that we kind of need to have. So, you know, just know that my heart goes out to you, it really does. And so the last two cards that we have here, so these are the ones that kind of popped out while I was shuffling. So both of these are in the Suit of Swords, which makes sense with kind of what we were talking about with the High Priestess. So the Suit of Swords deals with that mental energy, so it's kind of like this mental energy overriding this, and even where I intuitively chose to put them, it kind of ended up right next to the High Priestess too. So this card has different artwork on it than the kind of like usual artwork that the Four of Swords has, but I actually think it's particularly fitting for this reading. So Four of Swords is all about taking time to kind of pause and contemplate kind of before you decide to move forward. It's all about kind of creating a sound kind of mental landscape for yourself. This particular card interprets it as kind of like a pause between battles. And so the particular wolf on here is Fenrir, which is the like Norse deity that is trying to like, I think, end the world or kind of like destroy the world, tree or eat the sun, one of those things. It's been a while since I read my Norse mythology. And so kind of, I think that's very appropriate for this, where it's like, you're kind of right now at this moment of lull between battles, so to speak, or between kind of situations where you're at this moment of decision where you kind of have the ability to create a kind of sound mental landscape for yourself. And then the other card over here is the King of Swords in reverse. So King of Swords, when it's upright, is all about the kind of full mastery of the mental landscape. So with it being in reverse here, it's saying that it's like one of the reasons why it's so important to kind of have this moment of contemplation before you make this really big decision is because you don't have everything fully figured out right now, or because this situation has been so hectic. Again, this king is in reverse, so it's making this king in reverse. You just haven't really had the opportunity to really get your head around or grasp kind of all the thoughts that you have around this. So if you give yourself the time to sort through your own thoughts, regardless of anything that this reading said, I think you kind of ultimately know what you have going on inside and the things that you're experiencing and feeling. When you take the time to sort through and settle those out, I think it'll kind of provide insight into how you can get to this Ace of Cups here, that ultimate renewal that it's talking about. So I'm going to go ahead and read the very last card here, Tantra of 639, and then I'll go ahead and move on to the next one. Be open to that which seems unfamiliar or different. You will experience a breakthrough as you embrace an unusual approach. You are on a soul path of accelerated spiritual growth, which is swifter but not always easier. You do not have to contrive your own happiness, but you can dip into the bliss within your body to enlighten your mental state and remind yourself everything is working out beautifully. Welcome, pile 4. You guys picked the Namibian fluorite, a little bit of black tourmaline. So this one is probably the least expensive fluorite of all the ones that I picked, and so kind of for the people who picked this one, a general nature for you is that you don't like things or want things to be too big or too fancy. You kind of just are comfortable with things that are just enough. So even though there were some like high-end collector grade fluorites on here, you were drawn to the one that is gonna work just as well as the others without being over the top and fancy about it. So yeah, so for that may apply a little bit to kind of the rest of the reading here, but if not, just take it as a cute little reason why you picked the crystal. So for the main situation here that your reading is going to be about, you've got the Queen of Swords with the cross energy of the Empress. So the Queen of Swords has been my stalker card for the last almost month now at this point. I want to say consistently for there was a 2-week period where she showed up in absolutely every single one of my readings that I did for myself or other people. And every single time that she came up, she was about communication. So for the people who picked this one, this will be about kind of healing or addressing some issues around communication that you may be experiencing. And so kind of for the people who picked this pile, the main cross energy here is the Empress card, which is very interesting. You have the Empress, and then you also have the clarifying card being the Temperance card in reverse. So 2 major arcana cards being the clarifying for this kind of communication thing. So let's get into it. So the first one here is the Empress. So the Empress is the 3rd major arcana card, which is about this energy of free to roam, exploration, creativity. It's limitless ideas and possibilities before kind of reality kicks in, and we kind of have to set structure and order to things to it. For a lot of the people who are watching this, that maybe that kind of some of the issues that come along with your communication are that they're not rooted in kind of logic or reality sometimes, especially sometimes people who get in very into kind of spiritual or esoteric kind of stuff. We can sometimes become very ungrounded, and you can hear it a lot in people's voices where it's they talk about everything like this and it's all just so amazing, and it's everything is kind of a concept rather than being very real and grounded. So it's they talk about intuition like it's this kind of thing rather than this very real thing that we experience in our day-to-day life with those little intuitive nudges. So for some of the people here, just make sure that you're not doing that, that you're not allowing ideas or concepts to become bigger than they actually are. Because it's while you're trying to convey how awesome this thing is, it kind of it has the opposite effect, because it's you're trying too hard to make it sound impressive rather than just letting it be impressive. And so the first clarifying card for that is the Temperance card in reverse. So the Temperance card is all about knowing when it's time to kind of hold back on certain things. You know, temperance is a virtue in the Bible. It's one of the 4 heavenly virtues, and it's about that act of kind of controlled restraint that kind of by holding back in some areas allows other things to kind of have the room they need to grow. So with this being in reverse, that's kind of saying it's that's the thing that would just need to be limited, is that kind of the loftiness of it. It's like when you kind of just become more grounded in the reality of the situation and you kind of cut back on that extra fluff, I think you'll see better results with your communication. So first kind of piece of advice here. So this one, it kind of felt like this was very complete in and of itself. I feel like these will kind of just be explaining kind of how this manifests for you, or kind of how this shows up, and ultimately why it's so important to kind of like work through this or kind of have better communication in your day-to-day life. So this right here is the internal aspect, external aspect, lesson or reason behind everything. Piece of advice, these are cards on the bottom of the deck. This one jumped out while I was shuffling, so I'll talk about this one at the end, and then this is your oracle card, which I'll read to close everything out. So, all right, so for the artist card here being the main piece of advice, so the artist is one of 2 additional major arcanas that this particular deck adds that's not a part of the traditional system, and so the energy of this, so this is the very last one. It's like there's the world card, and then this deck has the well, and then the artist. It's like the well is like looking back at the whole journey that you just went through, and rather than starting back over with the fool, it's like pulling up this source of creativity and kind of like things that you learned or wanted to take from that lesson or that situation. And then the artist is like when you take everything, all that inspiration that you drew, and then you kind of like create this whole new world for yourself and other people. The artist card is all about kind of like creation. Specifically, it's like, you know, as we go through and experience a lot of different things in our life, you know, some people are so compelled to share those stories in one way or another. And like for the artist, it's like putting meaning from based on your past experiences into the thing that you're doing. And so I think in a very abstract way for you, especially with it paired with the Sun card, that's kind of what I think you do in a lot of your communication. So it's not just so much that it's like this thing is this thing, but this thing in some way becomes connected or tied to you in some way. If you look at your hand, you may actually have this kind of thing on your thumb that I have, where it's called like a grill of Venus. So it's kind of like these cross hatches on the thumb. That's very indicative of that, where it's kind of like it's like, you know, I have it too, obviously, but it's like we kind of like a lot of the energy to be directed back towards us on the things that we're sharing with other people. And so with the Sun card too, the Sun card is all about self-expression and kind of like shining your brightest and allowing that to kind of echo out into the world around you. With this here, it's like, I think that's what you're trying to do, is like ultimately with this kind of loftiness that you're speaking about, it's kind of like you're trying to convey the personal feelings that you got from the situation, which I think doesn't always translate to other people kind of receiving that same energy. So for this card here, so this is the internal aspect. So we've got the Page of Wands in reverse with the Fool card upright. So Page of Wands in reverse, it's kind of saying, it's like, I think you've been feeling this little bit of resistance, you know, obviously in this area of your life, but you haven't really quite known exactly where it is to go from here. It's like you've been feeling this passion or been feeling like you need to make some course adjustment, but just a lack of knowledge of where to go. So the clarifying card for this is the Fool card, hooray! So I think for a lot of you people, even just hearing this message in the middle may have kind of helped unlock what it is that you need to do moving forward. And so that's kind of what the energy of the Fool is about, is the Fool is all about just this inception of an idea. So the actual Fool, if you look, is the number 0. It is not the number 1, that's the Magician. The Fool is a very like, there's no action that needs to happen with the Fool. It is just the very start of the journey. And so it's like the Fool is where you're taking that first active step and deciding what it is that you want to do. But the Fool is just the feeling that arises where it's like, oh my God, I need to change. I need to do something. It's like, wow, what I've been doing has not been working for me. And I need to do something differently. So with this card being here, I think it's like you are at the point internally where you have this inception of, oh my God, something needs to change. I need to do something differently around my communication. And now you've kind of been given that little bit of direction here. So external side here is the 8 of Swords with the 5 of Cups in reverse. So this is the external side. So this is kind of how other people view the situation, or specifically it's like how the people view the conversations that they're in with you. So this one is the 8 of Swords. So the 8 of Swords is, if you look at the picture here, it's kind of like this person is in a very trapped situation. You know, they are bound and tied. They've got all these swords around them, kind of blocking them in place. So I think sometimes when the situations or the conversations kind of get into this more lofty nature, or they kind of start just, they keep going, maybe there's not a lot of dialogue in these, maybe it's you kind of dominating the conversation. I feel like a lot of the people kind of feel trapped in these conversations sometimes, or it's like maybe they want to get something in, or they want to kind of like redirect the conversation, but it always kind of comes right back to this over here. Clarifying card for this is the Five of Cups in reverse. So with this card, there's like 3 cups overturned in front of the person, and then there's 2 kind of standing up behind them. With this card here, it's like I do think a lot of the people that you talk to kind of find the good, or kind of like the things that you're trying to say in the things that you're saying, but I still think the kind of base emotion here is that kind of like trapped feeling ultimately. And so obviously that's a thing that we want to avoid. And so again, being mindful of things is kind of like the first step towards overcoming it. But it's like, again, you have to know how the people feel to kind of recognize why it's so important to change this thing. And so lesson or reason behind everything here. So this is kind of like the ultimate reason behind why this is the reading that decided to come up for you today. And why all the cards came up and said the specific things that they did. And so the first card here, this one is the Magician card in reverse, clarified by the Strength card. So 2 major arcanas, just as we had 2 major arcanas up here and 2 major arcanas in the middle. So definitely very important thing here with all those majors coming up. But so specifically, so we talked about the Fool, where it's kind of like this inception of an idea before you actually take any action on it. It's just that recognition where it's like, wow, oh my God, something needs to change. The Magician is when you take that first active step and you're like, okay, something needs to change. What can I actually do about the situation? You are unpacking all of the things that you felt in that Fool energy, and then kind of creating the path that is going to be before you, that is the rest of the major arcana. With this card being in reverse, it's kind of like the main lesson or reason behind why this is showing up for you today is that you can't know what path to make for yourself if you don't have this kind of initial feeling that something needs to change. And so with this being in reverse, it's saying that if you have tried to change this or make any course adjustments related to this before, it may just be because you didn't quite know exactly what it was, that you were kind of working over off in a different direction. Clarifying card for this is the Strength card. So whenever the Strength card comes up, we are always kind of confronted with an obstacle or a seeming roadblock in our path. And so the energy of the Strength card is that when the situation arises, it's not there just so that way our higher selves can be like, oh, haha, look at that, I made their lives a little bit more difficult, like check one for me. It's always there because it's like we plan to have this experience because there is some lesson or key thing that we can learn and grow from by working through this. So it's like, by working through this kind of like communication issue that you're having, it's like because of the work that you would put into it, once you overcome this, it's like your newfound sense of communication will now be a greater strength to you and your ultimate path moving forward because of all that work you've put into it. And so I think ultimately for a lot of the people who are watching this, communication is something that's very important to you, as well as something that will continue to be important to kind of the things that you ultimately do for the rest of your life. So it's important to kind of learn this now before it becomes a bigger issue for yourself and it kind of creates other things for you in the future. These 2 cards here are the cards on the bottom of the deck when I was shuffling, so it's like background energy that applies to the reading, but it's not necessarily something that you can act on per se. And so for here, you've got the Ace of Wands with the Moon card in reverse. So Ace of Wands upright is all about like this new kind of like passion or kind of like inspiration that you're creating for yourself that you then kind of have a new little path to work down. So Magician, because it's the number 1, is always very associated with the aces, and even look, he's holding the wand for the Ace of Wands. And so particularly here, these 2 are kind of connected. So it's like this background energy here, it's like, I think one of the reasons why communication is so important to you is that you knew this was going to be very important to your path. And so it's kind of like, it's like you've been feeling this new kind of just aspect of your communication that this is going to bring out for you, and so allow this to kind of unfold very naturally. I know that was a little bit abstract sounding, but I think kind of the idea of what I was feeling got across. And so the last card on the bottom of the deck is the Moon card in reverse. So the Moon card, when it's upright, is about a couple of different things. It's about timing, and then it's also about kind of like illusion, but particularly for this, I feel like it being in reverse is kind of like a timing aspect. I think one of the reasons that I you know, why the Empress is kind of here that I touched on earlier was that I think with this kind of loftiness that you speak with, you have a tendency to kind of like dominate the conversation sometimes. And so with the moon in reverse, it's saying there's like a mismatch of timing kind of with the communication aspect of things. So yeah, we've got that. And then I'm going to read the Oracle card, and I'll do the card that jumped out of the deck. Out of confusion, a clear and progressive pathway is opening up for you. It is an auspicious time to give generously of yourself to others, enriching the qualities of your connections, expressing spiritual blessings of goodwill and encouragement from your heart. A powerful blessing is entering your world. A prayer is now being answered in a beautiful way. Spirit gives freely and generously of all good things, and the task of humanity is to learn how to receive. The key to receiving is an open, surrendered, generous, and trusting heart. So, how appropriate. And that also leads way to the Ten of Cups. So this is like a Holy Grail-ish type situation. So it's a very open cup just waiting to be filled by the divine spiritual light. And you've got the Ten of Cups here, which is about the kind of like culmination of kind of like this cup journey, so to speak. So it's like whenever we have the kind of numbered cards in tarot, specifically in numerology, so it's like the numbers 1 through 9 kind of talk of a complete cycle, and then when you get to the number 10, it starts the cycle back over because 1 plus 0 equals 1. And so the Ten of Cups is kind of talking about leveling up in some emotional way that kind of puts you on a whole nother landing, and that landing also provides its own little journey to kind of go and embark across. It's like when you level up, you know, in a video game and stuff, it's like once you level up, it's like you still continue to gain experience until you get the next level, and then you hit the next level, and then you hit the next level. And in the grand game that we call life, you know, fortunately there is no kind of level cap for it, so to speak. There's only growing and growing until you reach nirvana, and then you kind of start back over with a new game plus, so to speak. So there we go. That's what I have for you guys. Go ahead and leave a like, comment, and subscribe down below if this resonated with you, and see you in the next one. Take care. Bye. Hello, welcome, pile 5. You guys picked the fluorite included quartz from Madagascar. So this is really cool. There was only one deposit of these, or kind of one known occurrence of these to kind of ever happen. So this is a rare but good one. Kind of similar, I guess, crystal energy to kind of like the first one, where the first one was the big fluorite corner that had little chalcopyrite or pyrite inclusions, and this one's got the fluorite inclusions. So kind of the energy behind this is that underneath the surface there are all these little pockets of gold that really kind of add to your character and charm and make you into the person that you are. And so it's okay to sometimes let some of those things rise to the surface, but also the thing about this that makes it so unique is that it is fully included in the quartz. So kind of let all your unique things make you unique. Yeah. So just a little bit of fun, kind of like a personal analysis based on the crystal that you picked. May or may not have anything to do with the reading, but I just think that's kind of fun. So for the situation as a whole, or the main thing that needs to be addressed right now, it is the Three of Cups. So the Three of Cups is all about kind of like social harmony and bliss. This is like working, like not just working well with the people around us, because that's more so the Three of Pentacles, but this is like feeling in harmony with the people around us. So it's like an emotional connection or an emotional understanding for the people in your circle. This card is upright, and so it's kind of saying that it's like you may have a pretty good understanding of this kind of social dynamic or kind of understanding of the people around you, but with this card being here, it's saying there is some further thing that could be unlocked or discovered about kind of the people around you. The cross energy here is the World card. The World card is the very last of the major arcana. So the World card is about ending. So this will kind of mean a couple of different things for a couple of different people. For some people, it could be that there is an ending kind of within your social circle, especially with the Chariot in reverse. Chariot card upright is all about moving forward with kind of tenacity, or kind of like, you know, you have all the pieces on your board that you need, and so you are very comfortable kind of with moving forward, or kind of beginning. With it being in reverse, it's saying that there's like something that's happening in your social circle that's making you feel a little bit hesitant about moving forward. So even if things have felt very harmoniously, you can still kind of feel this resistance towards progress in some way. And so the World card here is ultimately about that. I think a couple of different things. So as we go throughout our life, there are kind of natural endings that occur. as is just the kind of divine cycle and order of life. In order for new things to begin, other things must end. You know, in order for plants to grow, other plants must die to provide for the soil underneath it, and kind of that whole circle of life type thing. So with the World card here, don't be afraid of kind of any endings that need to happen for you. The World is a very gracious, blissful card, even though it is kind of an ending. So just bear that in mind. And so the kind of key piece of advice here, or kind of the key thing that your spirit guides want to get across for this, is the Four of Cups with the Knight of Coins in reverse. So Knight of Coins in reverse is very similar to the Chariot in reverse. So particularly for this, I don't think this is the thing to act on right now per se, because there's kind of something that you're missing right now. So with the Four of Cups here, oh my god, how remember it? So it's like, okay, so Three of Cups, and then there's this kind of fourth cup floating up here in the sky above the person. And so the energy of the Four of Cups is that we need to take time to kind of quiet the emotional landscape in order to kind of make sure that we're seeing all sides of the picture, because sometimes there can be something very obvious that we're missing because we're so focused on kind of all the other things that we have. So with the Four of Cups being here, you know, make sure that you are doing that, so you're trying to see all sides of the picture before you go ahead and take action, because, you know, Chariot in reverse, Knight of Coins in reverse, again, now is the time to think, not act. So internal aspect here, you've got the Ace of Cups in reverse. So again, interesting, you've got the Three of Cups, which has the 3 and the 1, and then you actually have the 3 and the 1 right here. So the Ace of Cups is in reverse. So I think this Ace of Cups in reverse is the thing that you're not seeing over here with the Four of Cups. So when the Ace of Cups is upright, it's kind of all about a new kind of emotional beginning or cycle for yourself. With it being in reverse, I think it's saying that it's like, maybe because it has been stagnating, that's why you feel the need to kind of make an ending or kind of make this change to how things were. And it could even be that this change isn't like, or like the ending isn't like ending a relationship or a friendship or something. It could just be a kind of end to the way that things were, and it's time for kind of like a new cycle or like pathway to kind of take its place. And so the clarifying card for the Ace of Cups in reverse is the Seven of Swords. So the Seven of Swords is about a couple of different things. It's about hidden aspects specifically, and this particular deck likes to draw out the kind of shadow aspect of that hidden thing. So it's like a lot of times we have wounds or things that we hide about ourselves to kind of help protect these wounded parts or these shadow aspects of ourselves. So it could be that kind of the thing that will ultimately create this refresh of emotion or kind of this renewal in this dynamic here would be kind of just like addressing some shadow aspects either within the dynamic or within the self for you to heal through and work through before you kind of take any action here. So for the external side over here, we've got the Hierophant with the Queen of Coins. So the Hierophant is a major arcana card that is all about kind of doling out key pieces of insight, wisdom, information that kind of unlock different doors, so to speak, kind of as we walk along our path. So these are kind of larger overarching concepts or little pieces of information that kind of apply to multiple things more than just one situation. For this being the external side of things, I think this whole situation that you're working through is ultimately one that when you kind of work through this over here, especially the shadow aspect, there will be something that happens that it's like the lesson you learned here will kind of apply to multiple things as you go through the rest of your life. And also too, specifically, it's like the people in this social circle for you are people who are really good at kind of giving you new key concepts or pieces of information. So it's like by being friends with them or by kind of like having them in your sphere, this kind of makes it like helps you along on your path far greater than if you were without this person. Clarifying card for this is the Queen of Coins. So specifically, this person may be somebody who is very like physically involved or invested, or it could be that they give you a lot of really good practical kind of worldly physical advice. So cards at the bottom here, so the lesson or reason behind why this is the thing that came up for you today instead of anything else that could have come up, and why the messages came across that did. And so you guys have the Hanged Man with the Four of Wands. So Four of Wands, Four of Cups, Love that they're in a line with each other, but the main card here is the Hanged Man. So the Hanged Man is all about taking time to kind of pause and reflect and see things from a different perspective before you decide to act or move forward on it. So this makes a lot of sense, especially with these cards also being here in the center line. So definitely pausing and really thinking and assessing things and dealing with the shadow will help before you decide to take action. Other card here clarifying it is the Four of Wands. Four of Wands is all about union, celebration, marriage. This came through, I think, in the second reading that I did today too, so that's very interesting. You may feel so called to watch that one as well. So with the Four of Wands here being the celebration and union card, I do think for the people here, there is a kind of refresh or renewal that is waiting to happen. It just kind of is going to take seeing things from a different perspective that will come along with kind of unlocking this Ace of Cups here. So there's that. Cards on the bottom of the deck. So you've got the Three of Swords with the Page of Swords. So 3 and 3, Three of Cups, Three of Swords. So Three of Swords is all about heartbreak. So specifically, it's kind of like the energy of the Three of Swords. It's usually like a heart with three swords kind of stabbed through it. And so the energy is not that there is just this one thing that happened that kind of created the feelings that we're feeling, but it's like this in combination with a couple of other things ultimately led to, you know, the sensation. So with the Three of Swords here, it's also saying that it's like, if you feel like there has been some kind of wound or hurt or something that's happened within the social sphere or like, you know, your friend group or whatever, it's saying that that has happened. But, you know, with this over here, I think it ultimately came from a shadow aspect rather than any malice or like ill intent. So allow people to kind of address these shadows rather than just throwing the baby out with the bathwater. So other card here at the bottom is about Page of Swords. Very interesting. So I've had a stalker card over the last like couple of weeks specifically be the Queen of Swords. So getting the Page of Swords to me is kind of mirroring that because she came up in one of the other readings. And so specifically the kind of key thing for this is communication. So if there has been some kind of wound or fault that has happened here, communicate it to the person. You know, they can't know what they did unless you tell them about it. So allow people to have the opportunity or the chance to fix things, allow them to start and progress on that own path. And so the oracle card here is Shekinah. So the spiritual worlds want to help you resolve your worldly concerns. It is safe for you to rely on spirit as a loving, protective, helpful, and practical presence able to positively affect all areas of your life, including facilitating the resolution of physical problems. Do not limit your spirituality to concepts. Instead, apply your higher knowledge and principles. Grow your wisdom and live your path. Acknowledge your value as a person, as a soul, treasure the gift of your path, and let your spirituality integrate with all facets of your life.